Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. So we have a much more positive Project Poirot video this week, which I'm sure we are all happy to see. Again, I don't know how much longer this is going to last, but this week is going to be positive, and then next week is Crooked House, which is an all-time fave for me. It's a little detour. It's not a Poirot book, but I just felt like that we should talk about it. So anyway, 2 positive videos, and then I don't know what will happen after that. We shall see. So anyway, this week we're talking about the Underdog and Other Stories, which is an Hercule Poirot collection. It is one that I had never read before, so this was a new read to me, and like I was saying, I'm very pleasantly surprised, or not surprised. I love Agatha Christie short stories, but very pleased to have something more positive to talk about. So let me do my little disclaimer and we'll get into it. So this is a little different than my normal videos because it is short stories, so I'm not going to do any spoilers for this. I never do spoilers. Usually what I do is I'll take you up to roundabouts when we find a body, and then I may talk about like character details, which in retrospect sometimes might be considered spoilery, but it never should really, I don't think, impede anybody's enjoyment. But since this is a short story collection, we don't even really need to worry about that because like I don't really like to get into the specific plots too much of short stories because they're so short that would I think be giving away a lot of the enjoyment. So anyway, let me just give you like kind of a rundown of what's in here, and then I'll give you a few thoughts and we'll do this. So actually, you know what, let me just read you the back because this will give you kind of an idea of the scope of the type of stories in here instead of trying to do any kind of synopsis. So it says, a beautiful heiress has been found dead on a train, a playboy has been stabbed through the heart during a costume ball, an elderly woman suspects that she is being slowly poisoned to death, a prince fears for his reputation when his fiancée is embroiled in another man's murder. A forgotten recluse makes headlines after he is shot in the head. Who but Agatha Christie could concoct such canny crimes? Somebody was very proud of the alliteration on that sentence. Who but the Belgian detective Hercule Poirot could possibly solve them? It's a challenge to be met in a triumph of detection. So yeah, there you go. Hey, if that didn't get you excited to read this, nothing I say will, so you might as well just click off right now. Yeah, so this is a collection that it was a very pleasant surprise because it is another Hastings collection. So I didn't think we were going to get to see Hastings again until the very last book, which is called Curtain, but I am delighted to report to you that actually we do get him again. We get him in this short story collection. This was published in 1951. So this was 3 years after Taken at the Flood, which was the last novel that we talked about. But from what I can surmise, and forgive me because I wasn't able to do as much research on this as I normally like to, I believe that this is a compilation of short stories that were written mostly in the late 20s, but really even probably like the 30s. And because of that, we get Hastings, which is so great. And I take that back. I think this is mostly probably in the 20s just based on some contextual clues. But anyway, it's a Hastings collection, which I absolutely love. I really do just think that Poirot in general is doing, like, he works best with Hastings. So I think when Hastings goes away, it just creates narratively some problems. The ones that she overcomes frequently, but that just structurally I think he works best with Hastings and with Hastings as our narrator. So it's just great to have him back. The other thing that I was really happy to see was that Jap is in like most of these short stories, and he is my favorite Hercule Poirot inspector. I think that's true for a lot of people because he's often who they make the inspector in the David Suchet BBC adaptations, and because of that I think a lot of people sort of think of Jap as the equivalent of almost like a Lestrade from Sherlock. I think we tend to think of Jap that way, but he actually doesn't show up all that often in Poirot books. So I was really happy that he was in so many of these. So in terms of just like enjoyment, I think that this is a really, like, I still prefer Poirot Investigates, which is the other collection of Hastings and Poirot short stories. I prefer Poirot Investigates, but I do think that this is like an extremely enjoyable collection, one that I would definitely recommend. And then in terms of just like things that I can like generally observe, I always find it a little hard to talk about these short story collections just because like this one in particular, there's no thematic tie-ins really. I did find that there's several of these short stories that are essentially the exact same plot as some of the novels we've already read, like the exact same, but just in short story form. And this helped me like solidify my theory, and I've been talking about this in the comments, I think, with Ian, I've kind of been like thinking for a month or two now that like, yeah, probably about half of Agatha Christie's books probably should have been short stories instead of novels, or like novellas instead of novels. Like, I increasingly feel that way. Not that they're not good, but just that I think they would have been excellent if they had been shorter, because I just think sometimes in her novels, she drags things out too long, things that don't need to be dragged out, and if it was shorter, it would be like more cohesive and tight, and I just think sometimes it would just work better. So this book definitely solidified that, because we literally have some of the same plots just in short story form. For example, like most notably, so you guys know, up until last week, The Mystery of the Blue Train was at the bottom of my list. Like, I liked it the least. I didn't think it was that great of a book. And actually, Agatha Christie always cited it as the one that she thought was her worst as well. I know that a lot of people disagree with that, and I already do too, right? Like, I think Taken at the Flood is worse. But it's interesting because it's clear that I think she wanted another bite at the apple on that story and doing it in a way that she thought was more effective. And hey, guess what? When you introduce Hastings and make it a short story, that was a perfectly good, that was like an excellent short story, right? It was like almost literally the exact same plot, and so much better because it was a short story. So I do think, like, one of my conclusions from this project is that she often should have written a novella instead of a novel, or a short story instead of a novel. Now, I will say one exception I would put to that is that one of the rewrites, one of the rehashed plots she does is she basically recreates Murder in the Muse, which is the titular novella of Murder in the Muse, which is a collection of 4 novellas, all of which are excellent. That is a very, very good collection. She recreates it as a short story, so she took a novella and made it a short story, and I think that there was no reason for her to do that. Like, I think that that novella was very successful, and I think actually as a short story, this version of it, the same plot, was less successful. So, like, I'm not saying universally she should shorten things just for the sake of it. I just think often she just doesn't quite have enough, like, there in a novel for it to be excellent. Like, it's good, it's just not excellent, and I think sometimes if it had been shortened, it could have become excellent. In terms of like specific titles to recommend, I will say that The Affair at the Victory Ball is a short story I had not previously read, but it's one that I've seen mentioned a lot in Christie's scholarship, and one that gets referred to a lot. So it's like a more famous one. So that might be one of interest. I would actually say, though, my personal favorite was the Les Misères Inheritance. I thought that that was a really good one. Not necessarily a surprise if you read, like, I guess one thing I should mention, I was going to say not necessarily a surprise if you read a lot of Agatha Christie. I will say, doing Project Poirot, I think, has made me probably enjoy some of the new things that I'm reading from her less, just because since I'm so immersed on a day-to-day basis at this point in Agatha Christie, like, I'm reading so much of her in a very focused amount of time, I have always kind of, like, by the time you've read 10 to 20 of her books, and she has like 85, so like an eighth to a quarter of her oeuvre, you know a lot of her tricks. Like, you can guess the plots a lot. When you've read them all in such a short amount of time, like, you really can guess pretty much everything that's going to happen. Like, I don't think that there was a single one of these stories where I was even remotely surprised about who done it or even how they did it. So I will say that that probably diminished my enjoyment somewhat in this, just because I've been reading her so much, so none of these were that surprising to me. So just a word of warning, if you binge Agatha Christie, you might end up not enjoying the new ones you're reading quite as much. That being said, even though I knew exactly what was going to happen in that particular short story, it was one that I really enjoyed. I thought it was effective, and there was a really, like, sweet parting line on that one that I was like, yes. I just enjoyed the delivery from Poirot. I don't want to tell you what it is because it'd be a little bit of a spoiler, but anyway, I enjoyed that one. So that was probably my personal favorite. So I would say those are probably the 2 most notable, though I also think that the Plymouth Express, which was very similar to Mystery on the Blue Train, I thought that one was pretty good, and the Market Basing Mystery, even though it was a rehashing of Murder in the Muse, I also thought that was good. Oh, and the Cornish Mystery, it had one of her kind of bait and switch plots that I like quite a bit. So anyway, all that to say, I think this is a very good collection. Most of these are pretty good, and I don't feel like I I don't know that I was able to really take a lot from this thematically. I think mostly I was just caught up in enjoying the fact that Hastings was back, that Jap was around, and I was really probably reading this a little more shallowly than I usually do, so I don't know that I have a lot of like profound things to talk to you guys about, so I apologize if that's like one of the things you like about these reviews. I don't have that this week, but anyway. I've been rambling, so I'm going to wrap this up and just basically say that I really did enjoy this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, which is a 5 out of 7 on my scale. And yeah, I would say that this is very good if you like Agatha Christie short stories, and why don't you? Because they're always great. This is one I certainly recommend if you like Hastings short stories. This and Poirot Investigates, and Poirot Investigates is my all-time favorite Agatha Christie book as of right now, are really the two that you go to for that. So there you go. In terms of like where I put this on my list, I would put it towards like the middle top. I probably didn't like it as much as Murder in the Muse, but like right around that type of level of enjoyment. So that does it for this week of Project Poirot. Like I said, next week is Crooked House, which is a little bit of a detour because it's not a Poirot book, but it's very enjoyable. Hopefully you guys will enjoy that detour, and it's a personal favorite. So, and this is my channel, this is my project, and I do what I want to do. So we're gonna read Crooked House, and that's just that. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you're so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below. I think that will do it. I hope you guys are having a really great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!